Bonjour et bienvenue à Rendez Vous avec Yasmin
and Kumar. Our rendezvous today is with the renowned painters of the 43 group.
We're right here at the Sapumal Foundation in the heart of Colombo and Mans Place in Colombo 7, which houses a beautiful art gallery, and this has been in existence since December 1974, 50 years ago. The gallery showcases the work of the greats of the Sri Lankan art world, where a considerable part of the work on display consists of the founder members of the famous 43 group.
The 43 group came into being in 1943. They exhibited in 1943. They were a group of totally different artists who were painting in different styles and different techniques, wildly different, sometimes conflicting temperaments and personalities. They were brought together by developments which had taken place in France in the early 20th century, when you had artists like Picasso and Matisse pioneering new ways of looking at the visible world. The 43 group can be defined by George Keyt's words. They committed themselves to, quote, the rejection of all that was obsolete and dead in the arts of Ceylon and all that was obsolete and dead in the arts of Western Europe. The artists of Ceylon in the 1930s and 40s were very excited by what they saw as completely different ways of representing the visible world, but they were also part of a changing environment. 1931, Ceylon had become the first Asian country to be given universal suffrage. The tides of change were blowing across Asia. Colonialism was starting to crumble. And when they saw these new techniques and new philosophies, it was part of something they felt embodied a new world for them, break with the colonial past. So in fact, the 43 group is about much more than art.
As the author of this magnificent volume, George Keyt, The Absence of a Desired Image, what does it mean to be a Sri Lankan artist, and what features of George Keyt's work made him a Sri Lankan artist?
He was the first Sri Lankan painter to be influenced by the art, heritage and culture of Sri Lanka.
Painting was in my life, not that I sort of set out especially to be a painter, but painting just came natural to me, and I went on painting, and there were the various influences which account for the different styles in my work, the different aesthetic experiences.
What made him unique is that he went out of his way to steep himself in the language, the literature, the philosophy, the art, the music and the dance of his country. This made him quite exceptional. And if you look at his work, he absorbs some of the most defining characteristics of Sri Lankan art through the thousands of years. Sigiriya, Polonnaruwa, and then later Kandy. The defining characteristics in Sri Lankan art are the curve, the vaka, and the line. Keyt's work is defined by line and curve, and he's complimented by critics all over the world for his mastery of the curving line. This is the result of the fact that he's deeply embedded in the art and the culture of this country. He is, in fact, the first Sri Lankan artist to be embedded and to go out of his way to identify and absorb and assimilate the country's art and heritage. India was a vast source of inspiration for Keyt. After his first visit, he drew on it all his life. For him, it was a vast vehicle, quote, a world where gods and men intermingled. It was peopled by gods of tremendous power, different forms, personalities, where men and gods came together. For him, this gave him an idea of a reality which appeared beyond the visible world. He was fascinated and inspired by its art, its philosophy, its music, its history, and its literature. most of all, it was the poetry which drew him into this world.
Beneath flowering branches, you sit relaxed like the twilight, with the blue sky and the yellow sun on either side of you, resting your cheek on your arms, bare arms like waterfalls, but that which the night will wash away. I cannot stay, sharing your dreams in the sun.
The religious texts, the Bhagavad Gita, and then the great poetic epics, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, this drew Keyt into the world of India. But what is also interesting is that combined with his passion for European modernism, Indian art too was not realistic or representational. There is a vast body of Keyt's work which still remains unpublished. Now, even this book collects only a fraction of what is actually out there. There's a huge body of paintings in India and also a large number of paintings in Sri Lanka. But there hasn't been an exhibition on Keyt for a long, long time. Art is something which comes alive in many ways, and technology now can bring it to life. There's music, there's film, there's animation. These are things which India and Europe has explored to show their modern artists. Van Gogh's work is now animated and drawing huge crowds in 3D form. Sri Lanka has yet to do any of this.
The introduction to the catalogue of the exhibition of the artists of the 43 group held at the Petit Palais in Paris from 13th of November to 31st of December 1953, written by Peter de Francia, marks the first steps of young artists from a country which will undoubtedly make a very great contribution to the art of the Far East.
The impact of the 43 group in the 1950s and late 40s was extraordinary. In the few days at the Petit Palais, the exhibition attracted 10,000 people. It attracted the plaudits and the praise of some of the leading authorities on modern art in Europe. For example, John Berger, who became one of the great cultural figures of his time. The 43 group actually was the first modern art movement in Asia. And it had a huge influence on modern art, actually, right throughout the emerging colonial world.
The leading French art and literary journal Les Lettres Françaises, edited by the poet Louis Aragon, published a comprehensive review by the art critic Georges Besson. He found the painters of the 43 group to bring, quote, a new vision of living beings and of their country.
Georges Besson's comments are revealing because he saw that for any country to have validity, it has to combine technique and philosophy. What I think appealed to him, because he talks of vision, in assimilating and combining Western technique and philosophy. The artist who struck Besson's eye the most was Justin Daniagala, and he wrote about him and directed the attention of the French public towards the work of Justin Daniagala, about whom he said, this realist painter, this man of vision from Ceylon, this Daniagala whose name we should all remember, will from now be known as one of the most important revelations of our time.
To crown this reception in Paris came the purchase of 2 paintings for the permanent collection by the Musée du Petit Palais, the portrait of Irangani Serasingha by Ivan Peries and Fighting Bulls by Richard Gabriel. We end with the portrait of George Keyt taken by the famous French photographer Henri Cartier-Bresson.
Au revoir, à la prochaine.